This week on the TT show, OpenAI could change PCs forever by making them multiplayer. Sony pulls the plug on PlayStation VR 2. Kingpin editions could return with the RTX 5000 series. Zen 5 based Ryzen 9 9950X benched on Ada 64. The world's largest music labels team up to take down AI music generators, and much, much more. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the TT show. My name is Jack Connor. I'm a hardware editor over at Tweaktown, and today I'm joined by my co-host
Costa Andriadis, gaming hardware editor at Tweaktown.
Hello, hello.
How are we?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. We have a pretty jam-packed show today with lots of. I think we got a variation of stories this week.
Little stories because obviously last couple of weeks, tech, whatever Mageddon with Computex, and then Game Mageddon with the Summer Game Fest stuff. So it's just been like an onslaught of new, and now it's just back to your regular programming, which is a whole bunch of stuff with which we'll touch on, AI, displays, etc., etc.
Yeah. This show, I suppose, is a bit different because we do have some recommendations for some products.
Yeah, a couple of our own reviews.
So make sure you stick around. We're going to go through some of our reviews of a gaming monitor that I absolutely loved because of the price and what you get for it, and a projector as well for your movie madness sessions. So, but we're going to start off this episode by talking about a lawsuit that was filed against AI music generators. Now, this is within the last day and a bit is unfolding. So there is some pretty there's not a lot of details that are on about each of the companies, but what we do know is that a lawsuit has been filed by the Recording Industry Association of America, Sony, Warner Brothers, Universal, and some other music labels against a company called Uncharted Labs and Suno. Both of those companies are...
I think I've actually used Suno. I've seen that in action. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's basically like it's impressive stuff. So what you've got is like generative AI music, which is essentially, it's not difficult to make for the AI to create music that sounds like a genre, right? You can just like, especially electronic music, right? Because like a lot of that is very loop based, very a simple sort of like timing structure of the 4/4 beat. You know, every 4 bars there's a thing, and to teach AI how to create a house beat, you know, boom, 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 is not difficult, right?
Yeah, true. There's a lot of repetition in there that makes the training easier.
Yeah, but the training is, you know, what is it being trained on, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that is what these lawsuits are about. And this is one of the first major steps I've seen by music labels. You know, like these guys hold the gates to the music, the keys to the music industry.
These guys, like the Record Industry of America, et cetera, or anyway, like these music labels are so notoriously litigious, not necessarily just because they like suing people, but because they want all the revenue, right? If you're on YouTube and you're a creator, or if you're on Twitch and you're a streamer, if you've ever added music that is licensed to a video or while you were streaming, you'll immediately get an automated takedown request or copyright infringement. Like all your revenue will be taken, even if you use like a few seconds. And because they've developed a system to be able to do that, because they want all the revenue for all the music, right? Like, you know, this is an industry that traditionally, like, you know, if you're driving around in a car and you got the radio on and a music plays, the record label gets, you know, X amount for that every time that song is played, and then they distribute a small percentage of that to the artists, not a big percentage, but you know what I mean? Like, so like it is an industry like built around that. So generative AI is brand new. I'm surprised it took them this long, because we've seen lawsuits, maybe even last year, from news outlets, I think it was. Or
Yeah, it was the New York Times sued OpenAI because it believes, or it alleges it has evidence that OpenAI has used New York Times articles to train ChatGPT. So this is the same precedent here with the music labels that are filing against Uncharted Labs, which was actually founded by former Google DeepMind employees. And Suno has been engaging in a partnership with Microsoft to integrate.
That's the one, right? That's the one I tested when they announced that.
Yeah, it's music-based AI into Copilot, which I can absolutely see them doing as an additional feature for people that are subscribed to Copilot Plus. But yeah, so this lawsuit is it's interesting because they say they have evidence. I don't know how you have evidence without being inside of the servers of Uncharted Labs and Suno.
My assumption is that they're generating music in the style of tracks that they have, or music that they have copyrighted. And
how do you get that without?
And I'm assuming that
stealing the original.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that like the generated music isn't exactly that, but it's whatever their test is. Like, you know, they'll do a full analysis of the way of like the spectrograph and all the other musicality of it. And then if it's like, you know, 77% like this, then they might see that as evidence that it's been trained on that. But then like I'm sure that to the point where they're confident enough to be able to sue, but then also confident enough that the discovery, which I'm assuming would include these companies disclosing everything that their models are being trained on, and if that, you know, immediately shows up copyrighted material, then they've won.
Yeah, I think they're going to be forced to show how they trained the AIs, because this lawsuit is like this is like the Avengers of music teaming up to take down AI music generators, but it will set an absolute precedent for future AI music generators. Like if they win this, and both of them have to, like both Uncharted Labs and Suno have to admit to copyright infringement, pay all their legal fees, and take down their service, then I mean, this could have ripple effects across the entire AI industry. Like we could see ChatGPT be OpenAI probably go bankrupt. Look at this. Like the fee for each infringed piece of work, according to their lawsuit, is $150,000. Now, how the hell are they going to quantify that? If you take, say, 5% of a song, use it in your EDM track or something like that, does that quantify for an infringed piece of copyright work? You are sourcing copyrighted work. And, you know, I think on YouTube it's 3 seconds, right? You can play 3 seconds of a song. Anything more than that, then it will be copyrighted. Like even if you just played it through your desktop.
There are artists that it's even less than that. Like even just a note.
Like Michael Jackson.
If it's a note from one of his tracks, then it's automatically
copyrighted. But how do you quantify that with AI?
Well, like just to get into like the music weeds for a second. So the way, like let's say you're making music or you're a creator and you have access to royalty-free music, right? Like there's all these music libraries now that give you free music. Even like video editors have like free music that you can use. So essentially how that works is that you're given a license, right? And you can use it in your recording, you can use it in your whatever, video, etc., and that's the license that you get, right? You don't actually own it. But you can't actually sell it either. So like you can't sell it to somebody as, you know, like, you know, basically resell it.
A copy. A copy.
You can use this in your videos now.
Yeah.
Buy it off me.
Yeah.
Now, the way that generative AI would work is that, this lawsuit would be that the license doesn't cover using that to generate music, because you're selling that, or that process is like you're already bypassing the license because you're
Yeah,
like
because it costs you money to have Suno and Udio.
yeah, they're
Udio?
basically selling it or whatever it is,
Yeah.
like free or not, you're buying tokens or whatever the case is, and you're buying this generated music. But then so they're basically reselling it, or like the way it falls under the current laws for like royalty free music or licensed music. Now, the only thing that AI could actually generate or use to train their models is completely royalty free music, as in music that's no longer within copyright. That's
Yeah.
the happy birthday song, or something that's hundreds of years old.
Yeah, but no one makes money on that though.
No.
Yeah, which is not the case here. So yes, this is a very interesting lawsuit because we can see this ripple down to video AI generators, text generators like ChatGPT. Because at the moment, the AI industry, it is a booming, but no one knows where any of these companies are actually training their data from, which is the concerning part of all of this. And I can see if this feels like the first like card to fall down on the stack of cards, on the house of cards.
What's the easiest way for the AI to train is to just have a Spotify account and just go to a genre and then listen to everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, yep. And I feel like the AI music generators would suck if it was just on royalty-free music.
Yeah, like they would have, like the only other way around it would be to actually make a deal with these record labels, right? To have access to their music library. And then that's maybe the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal for these record labels is to have a deal with, settle out of court and then sign a deal to be able to say, okay, now you can use our back catalogue of 60 years of recorded artists to train your AI model to,
That's what the New York Times did. They settled with OpenAI outside of court. So essentially what that translates to is they slid a check across the table and said, is this enough to use all of your articles? And then they went, yeah, we'll pay you.
But the music,
that's exactly what it means.
The record industry's deal would also include every time you generate something we want to cut.
Yeah,
because they're not going to stop at like just a blanket license. Like they're not. This is
absolutely. It's going to be revenue. Every single time that I don't know. You would have to use like a digital paper trail to see when. And I don't even know if this under the hood surgical, like you can even get this surgical under the hood with it. Like I imagine the record labels would put in place that every time one of their copyrighted songs is sourced and used to generate a new song, and a percentage would be agreed upon, like the time, like I don't know, like 3 seconds of XYZ song used to generate a new song, then they get a cut there. So every time any copyrighted music is used in it, depending on the length, they would get a percentage cut. I don't think any of the music generated business like models would survive
also as well, like
that.
I don't think music artists would want their music. Oh, I mean, obviously there might be some, but like I would say 99% of the music artists would say no to AI using their music to train a model. Yep.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on to the next story here. Talk to me about this Sony and PlayStation debacle. Is this the end of PlayStation VR 2?
It sounds like
it. Or the end of PlayStation VR in general?
Potentially. Yeah. So Sony's PSVR 2, it was a surprise anyway that they followed up the VR 1 with the VR 2, right? Because when the VR 1 came out, that was kind of like when Oculus Quests were gaining popularity. Valve was, releasing their own headset, HTC, and so there was a bit of a boom to create like PC VR at that time. And then Sony was like, okay, let's bring it to the PS4, and with the hype surrounding it, like it sold millions. They sold millions of headsets, but it wasn't like 100 million like PS4 consoles or anything like that. So then the VR2 must have been in development for a while. It's actually a really good headset in terms of hardware. You've got an OLED display, you've got inside-out tracking, you've got like full motion controls. It like a massive upgrade over the original PSVR. Like the PSVR looks like a prototype compared to PSVR 2. But when Sony launched it, it never felt like they gave it much attention. They developed a Horizon Call of the Mountain game, which was like based on the Horizon Zero Dawn or the Horizon Forbidden West, that franchise. And it was basically like a VR climbing game. Like I've got the VR2, had a review unit, and it was fun. And like, Gran Turismo 7 was a kind of like a new game at that point as well. And then they added a VR mode. And that's brilliant if you love racing games, because VR, because you're sitting down in the car, so you're sitting in your chair with the VR headset on, like it translates a lot better than some experiences. So like driving is a really good thing, but then that's niche anyway. Like sim racing and like VR racing is not like what most people would do. So outside of like those first party things, and even like Capcom support with like Resident Evil VR titles, there's a lot of games, but like if you look at the recent state of play presentations from Sony, like they haven't been putting much of a focus at all on VR. And basically what we're seeing now is that it looks like there's just like third party releases that are, games that are on the Quest platform that are coming to VR2 as well. And and then I think it would have been close after it launched that they made 4 million of them or 5 million headsets, and then they barely sold 1 million or whatever it was. So they obviously,
so it was a big loss.
So they dropped the production and they failed to meet the sales targets. And then because they haven't been talking about it for so long, this news from Android Central, citing sources close to PSVR project or within Sony itself, and that they're basically making deep cuts to VR game development. Now, this is also an on-flow effect of Sony restructuring or refocusing its game development for PC as well as PlayStation, looking at what's going to sell versus what's not, because it's a difficult time for a lot of big game companies like Sony. And so basically, deep cuts to the VR game development, and that basically there are only 2 first-party PSVR 2 games currently in development, and they might be the last. And so it's not looking good. I mean, if you even look back at February, they closed London Studio, which is like their first-party studio in London that developed a couple of... they developed like a bunch of games for the original PSVR, some like cinematic action type games. And so that studio has been closed.
It's such a shame.
Yeah, and, during the hype of the PSVR 2, like when it was first announced, like that first big summer showcase, people were expecting big things. Like people were expecting maybe that they'd made a deal with Valve to bring Half-Life Alyx to consoles, which would have been like a good
that would have been
PR
great.
move. Like people would have been like, oh yeah, what's considered one of the best VR games is now on PlayStation. And even for me, when I had it, there's the Star Wars Squadrons. It's an EA game. Like it was on PC, it's brilliant, but it was for they released a version for the original PSVR, but they never updated it for PSVR 2. So they didn't really, and that's kind of like one of the best experiences for that sort of thing, because you're in an X-Wing and you can, or a Star Wars ship, you're in the cockpit and you can look out the windows. Sick. You look up, you fly under a Star Destroyer and you look up.
That's awesome.
So that's one of that was my bucket list VR game. I like VR, but you bust it out once a year or whatever the case is. But that was one of those experiences that was incredible in VR that they never brought to PSVR 2. And so it seems that there's not going to be a God of War, there's not going to be an Uncharted. Doesn't seem like there's going to be a Last of Us. Even that new Astrobot game that they announced a few weeks ago is just PS5. That game, the original PSVR got an Astrobot VR game, and it was one of the best VR games on the original PlayStation. It was like a first-party, fun 3D platformer. So people were surprised that there's no VR mode in that. And so they haven't come out officially to say that we're going to shelve the PSVR 2. But like it seems like they've just pumped the brakes completely. Like if we actually haven't heard any major announcements in the last month, which was like when all the big game announcements were, like the writing's pretty much on the wall. So this report kind of solidifies that PSVR 2
it's on its way out.
It's on its way out. And then I guess the bigger question is VR just not? I mean, I would say like,
well, that was what my question was going to be. Is it on its way out because Sony made a lackluster product, or is it the simple fact that console gamers or PlayStation gamers don't want a VR headset or want to play VR because of the fundamental nature of VR itself?
Yes, and I think that flows onto like the other VR story, which was Apple scaling back the Vision Pro. So like apparently the Vision Pro team is now focused on developing a version of that headset that's half the price.
Yeah.
That's their target. And why would they be doing that? Because the original headset cost $3,500 outside of early adopters. It's just not something that people look at and go, I will spend.
That's been the plan at Apple for a long time. Like when I was recovering the launch of it, there was already rumors coming out from Mark Gurman from Bloomberg saying that Apple was planning on making a, what did they call it? Consumer centered
something
headset. So something that's like maybe I would say probably definitely less than $1,000.
Yeah, they're even saying
it'd be about the same price as an iPhone, I would say, which is about $1,200, $1,100, or something like that. Something that's not like, oh wow, that's still expensive, because people still buy the new iPhones, right? So even though they are expensive, they seem to be something that people will make concessions for.
I think it just comes down to the VR technology has evolved, but not at a pace that makes it. Like, if you look at when VR was taking off, people were like, oh, okay, it's a little bit cumbersome now because you've got all these wires, especially PC VR, you've got all these wires. You've got to set up base stations if you want room scale, motion controllers, things like that. You need like a dedicated space with like nothing. You need like an empty,
good PC.
Empty room, good PC.
Yeah.
And so it's always felt like, okay, this technology needs to go wireless. It needs to be lighter. It needs to be increased fidelity. It needs to remove certain technical limitations that make VR kind of hard for a lot of people to play.
Faster refresh
rate is definitely on that list. And now the headsets are kind of like at that level. But the most popular headset, and it is selling, that sells really well, is the Quest 2, not the Quest 3. The Quest 3 is a couple of $100 more, and that seems to be the breaking point for it. Is that like
or the Quest Pro as well?
Yeah, it's like there's a mainstream appetite for it, but only at the $300 price point of the Quest 2.
Point, yeah.
And that's an all-in-one headset that doesn't require anything outside of putting it on and having the controllers, and then you can just find an empty space to play. And that's the most convenient way, and it's the most affordable way. So like it just seems that anything like beyond that price currently just isn't selling like hotcakes. Like, you know, like it's not they're not selling like GPUs, they're not selling like consoles, they're not selling like controllers, keyboards and mice. Like they're not selling like the tools that people use to game with.
Yeah, do you know what I thought? This is a pipe dream, but like, imagine the Vision Pro was half the price of what it is. No, I would say less. Let's just say it was $500. Okay, $500. It came with a lot of games. Like Apple rolled out its catalog of games that are coming to the, like they announced at WWDC, coming to the Mac, like the new Assassin's Creed, etc., VR experiences. So you got gamers, and then you got like proper productivity applications inside the headset as well for $500. I reckon everyone would have run out and bought that headset because of what, like, just the impressiveness of
The
being
hype
in
would have got it.
Yeah, and the hype around it, $500. I reckon that price point, if they did that, we would have seen massive attraction. But because it was $3,000 USD as well,
Yeah.
there's no, and it didn't offer $3,000 worth of value after the reviews came out. Then we saw that influx of people returning their headset. I just think we haven't been shown a product that is between 500 USD and $1,500 that is worth buying yet. At least recently. Because how much was the HTC Vive? That was quite expensive, right?
Yes, yeah, and it still is. Like, it's still up there as one of the more
Vive
expensive.
is great.
Yeah, and they've got like the thing is, like, there is a VR market, but it's not mainstream.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, the Vive, you got to set up your cameras, etc. Right? Yeah. It's not as simple as, okay, putting on the headset, let's jump into VR. But it would be cool to see a really consumer-centered, gaming orientated as well, as much like give me some productivity as well in there. I don't need it just for a gaming thing.
But like, even when it comes to gaming,
$500.
Even when it comes to gaming, like, there is no killer app for VR. Like, you could argue Half-Life Alyx on PC, but that's still a very specific type of experience that not everybody likes. But then you look at what are the most popular like VR games? It's like racing games, games where you're in a cockpit, and or like simple sort of like puzzle games, like, you know, Beat Saber.
Or zombie shooting.
Yeah, zombie shooter.
Games.
Yeah, like basically like carnival games. These are like just so basic that like you're not getting Elden Ring levels of experiences in VR, right?
Imagine
you're not
that
getting
game
Zelda.
in VR. Oh, it'd be terrifying. Elden Ring in VR would be just...
What's the allure there? Like if you look at also like people's TVs now, they're 65 inches in most. Like, if you got enough space, right? You got a big living room, you've got a 65-inch TV, or even bigger, 75-inch now. You got a big screen and you're gaming on a big screen. Like, that's enough for most people. Like, to be honest, like cinematic games, like on a massive screen, is super immersive. And VR is another step in immersion, but like the experiences are just very, like, to be tactile, like, you know, using your arm
few and far between.
Yeah, and to be physical, like, not everybody even wants to do that. Like, you play like Beat Saber for like half an hour, and you're like, that was cool, and you can. It's almost like a fitness thing in a way, but like it's not at the same level of
probably the biggest reason I would have got if I, you know, was insane and decided to spend $5,000 on the Vision Pro was to watch movies in what looks like a cinema in VR, but without any image quality drop, because it's a 4K display. And that's like, that would be awesome. I'm sitting on the moon or watching like Deadpool or something like that.
Yeah,
that's sick.
That's cool.
I've never used one, but I would like to see because I would just be looking for terrible quality, because even if it's like a little bit less than a new OLED or something like that, I reckon people would still opt for just watching the movie, you know, in their living room on their 65-inch OLED, because they got their sound, etc., etc. But to be able to be on like a 14-hour flight and you put your VR headset on and now you're watching the Avengers,
but
that's really nice.
That to me sounds like it could be a nauseating experience because of like on a plane.
It would be, unless going through turbulence in VR would be crazy. That would be like, what is going on? The whole cinema's shaking. Let's move on to Kingpin editions. I saw Gamers Nexus interviewing Kingpin. I think it was at his lab.
Vince,
is
Kingpin,
that the same source?
Yeah. So Kingpin, for those unaware, is basically like a high-end overclocker grade GPU. It's called the Kingpin. Like, you know, if it was for the 1080 Ti, the Kingpin is like, that's one of the best versions you can get. It's going to be
Yeah.
faster than other models, and it has room for overclocking, some of the best cooling, etc. They're basically designed for like high-end gaming. And
Doesn't it have his profile? Like
Yeah,
the Kingpin
that's
cards
right.
come with
Yeah.
a custom overclocking profile that you can just enable.
That's right. So yeah, so Kingpin, so they're basically branded after Kingpin, who's a known overclocker. And
Legend.
in the past, these GPUs have been released through the American brand EVGA. And in our news story, we listed that it started with the 7080, the GTX 780 Ti, GeForce GTX 780 Kingpin edition, and then there was a GTX 980 Kingpin, 1080 Ti, 2080 Ti, and the last one was the 3090 Ti Kingpin. But then famously, EVGA pulled the plug on their GPU business prior to the 40 series launch, citing, I guess, whatever issues they had with NVIDIA in terms of potential pricing or allocation or whatever it was. I'm not 100% sure if the full details on that were made available, but that's separate to Kingpin because, he just had a deal with EVGA.
EVGA, yeah. He was EVGA Kingpin. I'm guessing EVGA was upset with maybe the pricing that they were getting on like the wafer.
That's
or
what I
something
assume,
like that.
Yeah,
like that's what I was.
the profit
because
margins.
usually the Kingpin, the EVGA GPUs, they usually get the first pick of the wafer. To my memory, at least when I was benchmarking the 10 series, and I did I remember benchmarking Kingpin's. I think it was a 980. 10, the 1080 Ti. Yeah.
Yep.
And the 900 series as well. And I remember Anthony telling me that EVGA gets first pick of the bin. At least at that time they did. So maybe their prices skyrocketed and they were like middle fingers to NVIDIA, and then they closed their entire because NVIDIA is the GPU market. They had to close their branch. But yes, go on. Sorry, with the Kingpin, just a bit of history.
Well, just building on that, my assumption is that Asus has that now with like their Strix lineup. Their high-end GPUs, they have the pick of the thing because they're kind of the most expensive GPUs. So according to, it was on Gamers Nexus, and Steve interviewed Kingpin, and it looks like the Kingpin series is coming back, and that it's going to be with another American brand, PNY. PNY make great video cards. They do a lot of enterprise GPUs, so like Ada 4000 and those sort of GPUs for workstations. Obviously now that are used for AI, but they do. Actually, I probably got one in the background there. The 4070 Ti is a PNY Accelerate. So they do great GPUs in terms of cooling and stuff like that. And when I tested their Super Series was the first PNY GPUs that I've reviewed for Tweaktown. And the cooling on those were super impressive. Performance was the same as all the other cards because they're within 1 or 2% of each other, so it's negligible. But the cooling is what impressed me. So so it sounds like Kingpin is signing up with PNY, and what would that mean is that Kingpin GPUs are flagship GPUs, so it sounds like there's going to be a PNY GeForce RTX 5090 Kingpin edition launching potentially later this year or early next year or whenever NVIDIA decide to launch the 5090.
Or whenever.
Odds are like later this year, but
yeah. It's just funny the way that you delivered that, because I was like, oh, they're coming out later this year. Then you're like, or next year.
Yeah. Or whenever.
Or whenever. I was like, are you dropping something right now? Like, what's going on?
Oh, yeah.
Is this an exclusive?
October 17, 2024, the 5090.
You reckon? Is that your prediction?
I'm just pulling a date out of my butt.
All right, let's do an actual prediction. What's an actual one?
Actual prediction? Yeah. It would be October this year.
You reckon?
I reckon October this year for
Techtober.
I reckon they would do something weird. They might do a 5080 first and then a 5090 in November, or the other way around. So October 5090, November 5080. And then we won't see a 5070 until April or May next year. Like, I think it's going to be
That's pretty good prediction.
Because there's
safe.
there's no competition, right? So
Yeah.
what's the incentive for Nvidia to even go all out? Like if
Yeah.
if AMD shake up the market as people hope, but they never really do. I mean, everybody falls in line with the pricing as it is. If they do shake up the market and they have like a mid-range GPU that's way more powerful than the 4070 and stuff like that, Nvidia would probably then just cut the price on their existing Ada Lovelace cards, which are still impressive and efficient and powerful, and then just wait until next year sometime to do the mid-range 50 series. But yeah, I mean, but what we really want to see is the flagship, and like a flagship 5090 Kingpin, the performance on that would be insane.
Yeah, I want it already. It doesn't even exist yet, but I want it. Do you want to move over to Zen 5 based 9950X?
Yeah. So announced at Computex, Zen 5 is the new desktop architecture from AMD, and they're launching it with, I think it's 4 SKUs or whatever the case is. The new flagship Ryzen 9 9950X replaces the current Zen 4 Ryzen 9 7950X, and that'll be the flagship high-end desktop GPU. Same power profile as the current 7950X, which is always important
Always good to see.
To point out, because it's not simply more power, more performance. It's same power, more performance. And according to early benchmarks in Ada 64, which is a
multi-threaded test.
Yeah, multi-threaded specific CPU benchmark and
synthetic test, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, most CPU benchmarks are. And with DDR5 8000 memory, it's 45% faster than the 7950X, which is pretty huge.
That's huge.
That could be like best case scenario based on the memory and the memory timings that Anthony put in the article, the low latency timings. So that would factor into the score as well. And yeah, so like in all the different Ada 64 workloads, it is pretty impressive, like to be like that much faster, and also like way faster than the Core i9 13900K as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, look, base clock of 4.3 gigahertz and a boost clock of up to 5.7.
Yeah.
80 megabytes of cache, 64 megabytes of L3 cache, 16 megabytes of L2 cache, 170 watt TDP, CPU boost clocks at 5.7. It has the same boost clock as the 7950X.
Yeah, it's very similar, like power profile and also like clock speeds and things like that. Obviously has more cache and stuff like that, which is always improves performance. But yeah, like it seems that the Zen 5 architecture is a good step up.
Yeah.
It is like, smaller node, more efficient. And yeah, it is more efficient. Like AMD announced that it's way more efficient.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited to see the new 9000 series. Particularly because I'll be getting the CPUs. And
oh yeah, I will need to, because I've got the 7950X in my current rig at the moment, and I want to upgrade that to Zen 5 for
absolutely
for whenever later this year or early next year or whenever the next GPU is launched.
Well, I'm on Zen 3, so I got a 5600X.
That's the way to do it, though, right? Like you skip a generation and then you reap all the benefits. It's like, I mean, that's always the case. Like you don't upgrade. I mean, I'm upgrading because
you can.
You had the best before, and now, I mean, through AMD, of course. Like it's like, they supply the CPU for the test.
Oh, they're going to be giving me mine
and then
as
just
well.
Upgrade it, yeah.
I talked to Gareth at the Tweetown party, and I was like, listen.
Listen,
when the 9000 series launches, you got to help me.
hook a
And he's
brother
like,
up.
I will help you, sir. I'm like, you the man. You are the man. Okay, cool. Let's go to, what else do we have here? We're blasting through these stories. Might be
Couple
a
of our
short.
reviews. We can go into depth.
We'll save those for the end. Let's do NASA confirming it would fail protecting Earth from an asteroid impact if it had 14 years notice. Which I think is...
So this is the plot of Deep Impact and Armageddon. You weren't
Yeah,
born. You weren't born when these movies came out, but in the 1990s, like at
I've
the
seen
same
both of them.
at the same time, they came out within like I think a month of each other at the cinemas.
wow.
Deep Impact
People
and
are-
Armageddon. Michael Bay's version was like the cheesier version, of course, with
Yeah.
Bruce Willis and the Aerosmith song.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's
awesome.
basically asteroids going to destroy the Earth, and we need to, I don't know, send astronauts up there to set
Blow
off
it
a
up.
nuke to blow it up or
Yeah.
redirect it out into space.
Well, even with 14 years' time, NASA wouldn't be able to organize getting Bruce Willis up to
But-
that asteroid because it just doesn't have the infrastructure in place. And unfortunately, this is from an internal report from NASA. NASA conducted an investigation on itself, and found this was the proposed scenario. It was a tabletop exercise. So 72% chance of an asteroid impact in 14 years on July 12th, 2038.
So that's the
The
scenario.
requirement-
It doesn't mean that
This
there's a
is-
72% chance, just to clarify.
Yeah, that's what I said. This is a tabletop scenario.
It scared me for a second. I'm like, wait, what? 72% chance?
Yeah, this is what they proposed. NASA's internal agencies that are dedicated to discovering asteroids, asteroid prevention, so on, like astronomers, so on. So, proposed scenario: 72% chance of an asteroid impact in 14 years on July 12th, 2038. And requirements for preventing its impact are unknown. The asteroid is between 196 and 2,624 feet in diameter, but is more likely to be between 328, 1,049 feet. Now, there is also a 45% chance its impact will affect no one, a 47% chance more than 1,000 people will be affected, a 28% chance of 100,000, an 8% chance of more than 1 million, and a 0.04% chance 10 million people will be affected. The proposed impact zones were across populated areas of Mexico, United States, Portugal, Spain, Algeria, Tunisia,
Tunisia?
Libya.
Yeah. That's where they
Libya-
filmed Star Wars, Tunisia.
Oh, nice. Egypt and Saudi Arabia. So this entire scenario was proposed, and what NASA found was, this is from the report, sustaining the space
A
mission.
shoulder shrug.
Yeah, this is. Well, I don't think we got it set up. Sustaining the space mission, disaster preparedness, and communication efforts across 14-year timeline would be challenging due to budget cycles. Money is the problem for stopping the asteroid that will potentially affect a million people or 10 million people. Changes in political leadership was listed as another problem. Personnel, they don't have enough people. And ever-changing world events. I don't know what that means, but none of this is good. Not once did they say in this report, we got it. Also, they said the process for making decisions about space missions in an asteroid threat scenario remains unclear. They don't even know where to begin with this. The process has not been adequately defined in the US or internationally, which means if there is an asteroid and we find one and it's headed straight for Earth, NASA doesn't know how to communicate with the China National Space Administration or the Canadian or whatever. There isn't a rubric in place for them to be like, all right, here's what we got to do. No one's talking to each other. NASA doesn't know internally, and it also doesn't know how to communicate that problem to other space agencies. 14 years notice.
Isn't that like the plot of Don't Look Up?
Yeah. That was in the source that I was reading from. They put that in their summary. They're like, this is Don't Look Up.
And it's going to be as bleak as that, as in, like,
Probably.
we don't have the budget, or I'm more worried about poll numbers or
Yeah.
celebrity or whatever the case is. We just
Yeah,
not gonna
because
bother.
there was some tragic event that happened in Uganda, and no one and that's what the news is covering. No one is talking about the asteroid, the devastating asteroid that's heading straight to Earth. Just to clarify for the listeners, this is NASA's report from its Planetary Defense Coordination Office.
So what do they have a plan for then? Do they have a plan for UFO attacks, like an alien attack? Like,
No.
What other 90s movies? Independence Day, do they have a plan for that?
They
have a plan
a
for-
plan.
Because I know what might work is if they use a Macintosh and they fly into the mothership and upload a virus, that should solve it.
Yeah, Windows XP. They just put Windows XP on the mothership, and in 15 minutes,
Exactly right. Yeah,
15
unsecured,
minutes.
open port.
You just
Yeah.
see the mothership just like, whoa, some nerd in his mum's basement is just with his joystick from Flight Simulator just controlling
And it's
the
just a big
mothership.
blue screen of death.
Yeah, just everywhere in the mothership.
Yeah.
Also, the report said that for example, the report found there isn't a clearly defined process in place to respond to such an asteroid, and that only one Earth impact prevention test has been demonstrated, and that is, for long-time listeners of the show, the double asteroid redirection test, where I think maybe I have talked about it early. It would have been in like really early episodes, but it's when NASA sent a vending machine sized spacecraft that was traveling like 10,000 plus miles per hour directly into an asteroid. It smashed the asteroid. This asteroid was actually what they call a binary system. So it was orbiting a larger asteroid, and the whole test was to see if they could change the orbit. They changed its the orbit of the smaller asteroid orbiting the larger one by about 11 minutes. So it proved that NASA and Earth is capable of redirecting an asteroid with a kinetic impactor, which is essentially just an object that's traveling super fast. This was a vending machine size thing that was traveling.
But doesn't that mean
I
it
think
can be done then? Like,
it can be, but they're saying, look, there's only one test that we've only demonstrated it once that we can do this. So
that's when you need Bruce Willis and his crack team of Ben Affleck and Owen Wilson, because
no, wasn't that the movie where they go to an oil rig and
Armageddon.
They get in Armageddon. It's like, well, we need these guys are going to save the Earth. Oil riggers.
Well, I mean, have you seen oil riggers? These are real men that know how to deal with an asteroid.
Not a bomb specialist or anything. Like oil riggers, the guys that get covered in black gold out at sea. We need those guys.
Because they
know how to get shit done.
They can get it done.
They can get it done.
And I think what Deep Impact was, send Robert Duvall, like an aging asteroid, into space. So like that's the other alternative. Just send an old guy. Send Buzz Aldrin up there.
That makes more sense. That makes more sense in my book. Okay, well, we have blasted through this show. Let's do you want to just wrap up on our reviews?
Yeah.
Maybe we do a bit of a deep dive there. Okay. You can start off.
Okay, so I reviewed, it's just came out last week. It's the JMGO N1S Ultra 4K laser projector. Now, this is like the latest model from the company, and their previous models got high reviews. This is the first time I've actually used one of their products. Now, what makes this different is that it uses its own proprietary light source. It's a tri-laser light source. Now, projectors have always been kind of like weird compared to like TVs, right? Like TVs we now know are LED based or LCD technology with LED lights or OLED and things like that. The way that a projector traditionally works is that you have like the chip or the display chip, and the light source is generally a lamp. It's basically just a lamp that shines a light through the prism, etc., and you got your lens, and it just projects a massive 100-inch screen. And that's
Yep.
and projectors have been kind of like great until like the Blu-ray era. And then after that, the rise of 4K TVs kind of changed things because, as you know, 1080p to 4K is 8 times the pixels, or it's 8 million pixels versus 1 million or thereabouts.
Yeah.
And so these chips in these projectors are pretty small. So like, if you look at your 65-inch TV, you've got 8 million pixels spread across that space. So if you've got 8 million pixels on a tiny little chip, that is so expensive to produce that it's prohibitive for like projectors to be mainstream. So what this projector uses that most 4K projectors use is a Texas Instruments chip, DLP chip, that essentially runs at 240 hertz, and it has a 1080p panel that alternates with like the 4 quadrants of the image. And so then you get a 4K 60 output. And the effect is 4K, right? It is crisp and thingo. And so what this projector does with laser light projection, and it has its own technology to remove any sort of like artifacts that you get from like laser light sources, which is like a speckling effect or something like that. I didn't notice any of that, but then when I read the full tech sheet or thingo on it, it basically said they've got a special thing, a custom thing that removes up to 97% of that, and it works. So what is the effect is that I've never seen a image this big and this crisp before on a projector. And I've reviewed a 4K portable projector last year and a few 1080p ones before that. So it is just insanely crisp, and also the laser light source is super bright. It's 4,000 ANSI lumens, which is how you measure the brightness of a projector. It's like, unfortunately, I'm not exactly sure what that equates to in terms of like nits, but it's bright enough for HDR. So this is a HDR10 10-bit color HDR display as well, and it automatically detects HDR signals and stuff like that. So it is so crisp, so bright, and the color balance is really, really impressive. It's the full Rec 2020 or BT 2020, the cinema grade color space that they test shoot in. And yeah, like the only thing like is that it is a portable projector. So it's really portable. It's got its own gimbal. So and that gimbal rotates horizontally. So it has like a little base that it rotates horizontally and vertically. And so basically wherever you are, it'll be able to fill the screen. And it has smart automatic screen detection. So if you have a screen and it sees the screen, it'll fill the entire screen. If you point it at a wall and let's say you've got like a cabinet in the way, it'll just go, okay, there's a cabinet there. I'll adjust the screen so it's right to the edge of that. If there is something like blocking light, it'll automatically adjust the size.
Oh, that's so good. So you don't have to manually do it.
Yeah, and it can keystone, which is the so like let's say you're aiming it at an angle.
Spot.
So like the projector's on an angle in the corner of the room and it's projecting to the center. It'll automatically adjust the image so it's flat.
That's
now,
awesome.
The bigger the angle, you do degrade the image quality because it has to digitally correct it. So obviously ideal is to be dead on or straight on, but because you can just make these minor adjustments to the horizontal and the vertical, the actual it is probably one of the easiest projectors you can to set up. And on top of that, it's 100% Google TV OS with no bloatware.
Oh wow.
So no. It doesn't have its own custom like boot up logo or anything like that. It's pure it's a Google TV in projector form. And that setup is like instantaneous. There is an app that you can get so you can do adjustments to the image and stuff like that if you want, but there's not really required. The Google TV interface has brightness and picture settings already in there for projectors. And yeah, like it's insane like how bright it is and how crisp it is. Now, the thing is that like that based on the technology of it being 4K 60 hertz because of the way the panel works on projectors. It is amazing for movies, amazing for, you know, cinematic TV shows. And, you know, I got like the image up to like 100 inches, like full, like really bright and crisp, and watch Dune on it.
Wow.
And it is like being in the cinema. Now, I have a soft spot for, like, if you're a movie fan, right? Like in an ideal world, let's say unlimited money, what you would do is like you would have your PC gaming room or studio where you do your work and PC gaming. Then you would have like your main lounge room area with a big screen TV for like couch gaming or high refresh rate gaming on like a big screen. But then for watching movies, you would have something like this, like either in the same room or whatever.
This is for a
screen
cinema
comes down, and you can play
guy.
games on it. And there is a game mode that makes it good for. It lowers the latency to about 20-ish milliseconds, so it's not. It's basically like a console used to be on like on an LCD TV. Like if you go to the PS3 or the Xbox 360 era, it's basically like that, which is good, but it's not. You know,
fantastic.
It's not Call of Duty level of you're going to be competitive level gaming on it.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
this
so
is awesome. How much is it?
This is the thing, right? So my downside to the review is that portable projectors are usually affordable, right? And there are like models that you can get that are pretty cheap. So this is pretty expensive. It's like $2,500 US. I think you can get it a bit cheaper there. Yeah.
Oh
So it
my
is-
God.
Yeah, and that's because of the
I mean, fair enough. How much
tri-laser
is that
light
Australian?
source. You know, I'm talking it up because it is like impressive. Like it lives up to that thingo. But like it's about the cost of a high-end TV with the added benefit of being able to get 100 inches that you can't get a TV image that this size, this crisp for this price.
Yeah.
And what I loved about it was the movie mode nailed like the color space that you want for a movie. But also as well the just for readability, for like this the sharpness of the image, it's almost like looking at a print on a wall. Because
Really?
what makes projectors, I think, better, what makes projectors better for movies is what makes watching a movie at a cinema better than watching it at home on a TV, is that the light is being reflected off a screen or a wall, and that is already immediately like 90% better than having the light projected straight onto you, which strains your eyes. And like a TV, like, or a monitor, like, you know, there is eye strain, and like as soon as you start looking at a monitor, obviously we can deal with it because it's every day you're watching TV, etc., etc. But then, like, next time you go watch a movie at the cinemas and you see the image, just notice how relaxed your eyes are, or in terms of like how there's very little strain, and it's
I
just
completely
like,
agree with that.
It's yeah. And when you watch a movie on a projector at home, you can just, it's almost like it is like you're in a cinema because of how much better it feels to watch a movie that way. And that also could be nostalgic as well, because you grow up, you go watching movies at the cinema, and having it in your home is really cool. But yeah, I think this is.
Is there a battery?
No. It requires power.
How is it portable then? 'Cause
Portable,
you can
which
move
means
it?
you can take it to any room and set it up within seconds. And it has its own like decent speakers built in, and it's Wi-Fi based. Doesn't require anything. You just plug it into the wall and just point, and within 2 minutes you'll be. I could bring it to your house now and then just plug it in and put it and just project it onto the wall there, and
Be ready
that's
to go.
it. You're ready to go.
Did you connect it to your Plex server?
Oh yes, you can see a screenshot in my review
Yeah.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where I got June Part 2 selected. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking
it's
at it.
Wi-Fi. It's connected to my Plex server. Yeah, with 2,000 movies just right there.
Boom.
And my Plex server, I set it up, the Plex app, to play trailers before the movie as well. So it's a full cinema experience.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. That looks like an awesome product. I would definitely like to see that one day.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is more. Well, I suppose we got a really expensive product and a really cheap product because.
Oh, affordable. Yeah. So like if you're a
Affordable?
high-end projector, like if you're in the market for something that's like a projector for like movies and stuff, I would consider this, put it at the very top of your list.
Yeah.
Because it is. it is noticeably better than the cheaper portable projectors. And portable projector, like I was saying, it just means being able to move it around. Like there's some that can run off battery, but they're not designed for that. It's just, like you run an extension cable, whatever. Portable means it has a speaker, it has Wi-Fi. It's basically a smart projector is a portable projector because it doesn't require you to mount it into the ceiling and run a 15-meter HDMI cable to it, whatever the case is.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I want to talk about the Phantom Gaming PG27QFT 2A monitor.
The lovely world of monitor names.
I hate it. This is a 1440p gaming monitor, and the reason I wanted to highlight this was because it was so affordable. It's cheap. It is 14, but it's not cheap. Like the monitor itself is built well. It looks like a standard gaming monitor. The display, the picture quality is adequate. It is more than $200 worth of the experience that you get out of it.
It's IPS as well.
It is IPS, but it's so cheap. I saw it on Newegg for $184 US.
Wow. Now,
this is a 1440p gaming monitor with 180 hertz refresh rate for under $200. Find me a better deal. I can't find one. This was done so well, and if you are in the market right now you want to jump from 1080p to 1440p, but you don't want to break the bank, 180 bucks, you can get a new gaming monitor. I thought that was.
What was it like? Huh? Yeah, what was it like playing 180 hertz in it? Did it look?
It's fine. It is fine. It is more like the picture quality. There was no tearing. I've had better experience. I've had worse experiences with more expensive monitors than this one. This was built really well. It was done really good. ASRock and Phantom Gaming, they are coming after the gaming monitor market. Like at Computex, we saw their entire lineup of new OLED displays that they're releasing. They're looking to move into this market, and if they keep making affordable solutions like this, they're going to cut the knees out from under the big players in the game. It is a very impressive monitor. I'll just rattle off some more of the specifications. So it's a 27-inch, 1440p, 180 hertz IPS panel. It's not outfitted with all of the connectivity options that you would get with probably a 500 plus gaming monitor. So we're talking the bare minimum. We got a DisplayPort 1.4, two HDMI 2.0s, 1x3.5 millimeter headphone output. That's it. There's no USB ports. You can't charge off of it.
It even has like inbuilt speakers and stuff, which is
it does. It does have some.
I mean, obviously, yeah, but like just to even have that.
Yeah. I reckon they could have got rid of that, and no one's going to be missing it. Very bare bones design. You can just
use the headphone jack.
Yeah, very bare bones design. This is when you, I think I wrote in the review somewhere that if I told you to picture a gaming monitor in your head without a brand on it, this is what the gaming monitor, this is what you would picture in your head. It's a very stock standard matte black, kind of like hard plastic. Has a very sturdy stand, and like by no means is the price tag a reflection of how well built this thing is. This is a solid built monitor. I would not worry about this breaking within 5 years. The only downside I would say about the physical side of it is I'm not a massive fan of forked stands, like with the 3-prong stand. I hate those. I hate monitors that do that. Because, I mean, the desk I have here is quite large. It's 1.8 meters.
They take up too much room.
Wide. They take up too much room, and usually they protrude out above. Like if you were to draw a line on the outside of your panel all the way down to your desk, the monitor legs come out further than the panel, if you know what I mean. And that's a problem if you don't have it on an arm and you're using the stand, because if you play low DPI or low sensitivity in first-person shooters and you're constantly moving your arm back and forth like this, you're going to smash into that stand.
All right.
Because usually you're sitting quite close if you're playing competitively. So that's a big problem for, like, I've gone through a lot of different monitors, and all of them that have stands I hit my mouse on, and I play at probably 400 DPI or something like that. No, sorry, 600 DPI. So my arm is moving a lot, but I know that is a big stickler issue for a lot of competitive gamers. It's actually the reason why I opted to moving to desk mount clamps. Just get rid of the stand entirely. Now I've got access under my monitor. So that is a physical downside, but you know, just get a $50 with the money that you're saving buying this monitor, just buy a desk mount clamp. Honestly, and you will have that for all new monitor upgrades. Just make sure you get something that is able to hold. How much weight is this?
Doesn't seem too heavy.
7.7 kilos. Oh, sorry, without the stand, 5.45 kilos. I mean,
which is not much.
Yeah, not much at all. You'll be fine with most of them. Yeah, look, there is actually, I should mention this. This is a unique feature. Azerock wanted to, and Phantom Gaming wanted to make their gaming monitor line a bit different, and most of them have an integrated Wi-Fi antenna that's compatible with Wi-Fi 4, 5, 6, 6E, and 7. The idea behind this, kind of weird, and I don't know if it's going to make much difference. It didn't throughout my testing at all. So you plug your...
Yeah, but I think I've seen this before as well. Like, you connect it directly to your motherboard's Wi-Fi antenna.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, and they provide you with a cable to do it. And what Azerock believe is that some gamers might not be getting a stable Wi-Fi connection because their PC is under their desk.
Which is fair, because your monitor... Yeah, but then if your monitor's higher, then the signal will be better. Isn't that how it works?
Sure, but that's like, you know, when people, they're like, oh, I'm not getting a connection. And then they just go like that with their arm. Yeah, sorry about that. Had a technical difficulty. The camera overheated. But we are back. And yeah, so like I was saying, the difference between having the antenna on the monitor stand versus in the computer, I don't think is that big of a difference unless your table is made out of aluminium or some kind of metal, because I think it's the equivalent of putting your hand up like, oh, I don't have a phone connection. And then you're like, yeah, hold on, I'll just reach out a little bit. And like, what, that's going to change it? That distance of your arm is the difference between you having a stable connection and not. Like, what are you,
I don't know.
Is it going to be 1 bar on the Wi-Fi? Like, you know what I mean? It just seems like a bit of a gimmick.
Yeah, I mean, but then like, then you don't need to have like your antenna sitting on your desk. You just run it straight to your display as well. Like, I mean,
if your PC is on the ground, you can put it on your PC. I put mine on my PC.
Yours is, well, see, even then, like, I would disagree. Like, I would want the antenna to be at least table height or like head height, because then you do get a better signal or a cleaner signal.
What?
Mm-hmm. You do.
Do you though?
Do you put?
I did tests on both. It did nothing, and I'm passing through walls. You're not worried about the walls.
When you set up a Wi-Fi router, right?
Yeah.
I've got like a mesh system. Okay, so you have those at like, you try and have them as high as possible. Oh, your camera overheated.
Yeah, keep going.
All right, so you want to have it at like as high as possible. So like, I set up my mesh system to be like, in one room it's kind of like at shoulder level, and then in the other room it's kind of just a bit higher, or it's about head height. And so then on my PC, which is sitting on my desk, the Wi-Fi antenna is sitting higher. So then that's a cleaner signal. That's just based on like, you know, my assumption of how it all works and how I've been doing it for like years, is that you want the Wi-Fi antenna to be as high as possible.
Yeah, but is there a performance difference? That's the...
Yeah, it'll just be a stable, more stable connection.
Yeah, I suppose. I said in the review, I'm like, this feels... I mean, my testing was fine. I ran the exact same amount of ping, all of it. It was exactly the same. So I said...
Yeah. Okay.
I personally... wait, no, wrong one. Wait, where's the antenna? Antenna. I said.
But this is not the reason to buy the display either.
No,
So
not at all. Not at all. Hold on, sorry.
I mean, USB ports would be more.
I agree. If I feel I could trade the Wi-Fi antenna for USB ports, I would. I believe the feature would only be really useful if your tabletop is a material that Wi-Fi signals struggle to pass through, such as metal, but perhaps in some pinch situations, it may be a lifesaver. I'm not 100% sold on it, but I can imagine it being utilized in some very unique cases. Like if you're right on the edge, like of you don't have a mesh system and you're sitting out the back and you got like a granny flat and the Wi-Fi router.
A big distance. Yeah.
And there's a big difference there.
See, I'm basing it on my previous place was where the router was. I didn't have like an extender. And then where my PC was basically it was like opposite ends of the house, like one corner to another corner.
Yeah, and that's where I can see it coming in.
And when you got to that room, basically that's kind of like, that's where the Wi-Fi went from good to bad like that. And basically in that room, the Nintendo Switch, which has notoriously bad Wi-Fi, could barely get any signal. But, obviously like a decent Wi-Fi off the motherboard was okay. But in that sort of instance, I had to make sure that the Wi-Fi antenna was higher because that would actually improve the signal. Yeah.
That's what
maybe not the speed, but just signal strength and signal quality.
100%. Well, I would just wrap the shop now because my camera is overheating. But yes, if you are in the market for a 1440p 144 hertz plus gaming monitor, you can now get one for, I don't think I said the response time, did I? I don't think the response time was
5 millisecond.
So that is another concession that you might have to make. You can definitely get 1 millisecond. Yeah, it's fine. You can get a 1 millisecond IPS panel, but you will be paying a bit more. Look, this is QHD gaming for under 200 USD. I am sold on this monitor. I'm very impressed. I'm excited to see what Phantom Gaming do with their OLED line. And yeah, if you need one, that's highly recommended by me. Thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of the TT Show. For all of the links, for all the stories that we talked about this week, head down to the description. There'll be a Google Docs link there. And then within that is all of the stories linked out for further reading. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the whole shabam. For audio listeners, go head over to the YouTube. For YouTube watchers and listeners, thank you very much. Go chuck us a follow on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Do you have anything to sign this week off, my friend?
No, not really. But we'll see you again next week.
That's it.
Maybe we'll do a few more reviews like this because it's good to like just talk about the cool thing that we've reviewed over the last week.
Yeah,
I've got a bunch of reviews going up, hopefully between now and then, and some reviewing new mouse, new headset, another keyboard,
nice,
and a Bluetooth speaker.
Yeah, I've got about 4 monitors sitting in there. One of them's a Pro Art display, and it's tasty. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. So yeah, stay tuned. And we will see you next week.
Yep. Bye.
See ya. Bye.